His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa and the President of the ANC, members of the National Executive Committee present here, our alliance partners, distinguished business leaders, fellow South Africans, good evening. We gathered here this evening not merely to host a fundraising gala, but to renew a covenant between a historic movement and the people it was formed to serve. The ANC was never sustained by comfort, but finance in sacrifice, sustained in adversity, and built on an unshakable conviction that the people of South Africa shall govern. Therefore, this evening cannot be reduced to a social engagement. It is a political act of responsibility, a moment of reflection on whether this organization that carries the legacy of our forebears remains equal to the expectations of our people at this present moment. Every contribution made tonight must carry with it a higher demand that the ANC must act with integrity, govern with discipline, and lead with purpose, converting resources not into comfort, but into tangible change in the lives of the people of our country. KwaZulu-Natal occupies a special and complex place in the history of our struggle. It is a province that has known both the courage of resistance and the painful consequences of division. It has produced leaders of immense stature and has, at critical moments, tested the resilience of our domestic project. It is therefore from this province that a clear and unambiguous message must emerge that the ANC must never be reduced to factional interest, to patronage networks, or to pursuit of narrow advantage that betrays our founding mission. Because when the ANC falters, it is not the organization alone that weakens, but the hopes of millions who continue to look to it as the primary instrument of transformation dwindle. Renewal, therefore, is not optional, it is existential. We meet also at a time when our people are asking difficult questions and necessary ones, questions about leadership, about accountability, about whether the promise of economic transformation is being realized with the agency that our conditions demand. These questions are not a threat to the ANC, rather they are a call to conscience. The strength of our movement has never resided in its perfection, but in its ability to correct itself, to renew the moral center, and to lead society forward even in moments of profound change. That is a tradition we must now reclaim, not partially, not rhetorically, but decisively. To our partners in business who are present this evening, we say, the future of South Africa requires a partnership and collaboration that is anchored not in convenience, but in a shared national purpose. Economic growth, industrial expansion, and job creation require investments and confidence. Equality and such investment requires a policy certainty, institutional stability, and ethical governance. The relationship between the ANC and business must therefore be defined by mutual accountability. Capital must serve development, and governance must enable that growth. This is not a transactional relationship, but a strategic compact for nation building. At its core, the ANC has always been a moral movement. It shall continue to do so in spite of the difficult complexities we may temporarily find ourselves. For the ANC was led by men and women who understood that power is not entitlement, but a responsibility. That leadership is not a position, but a duty, and that people must always come first. That moral center must now be restored with agency and with consequence, because without a moral foundation, no political organization will thrive, no matter how historic, can sustain our legitimacy. With it, even the most complex challenges can be confronted with confidence and with clarity. And so tonight, we must ask ourselves a question that goes to the very heart of this movement. Are we, in the offices we occupy and the responsibilities that we carry, advancing the interests of our people, or are we drifting into comfort of self-preservation? Because the future of the ANC will not be determined by its history alone, but also by the honesty with which it confronts itself in the present juncture. History will not defend us, only our actions will. The task before us, therefore, is to restore credibility, to rebuild trust, to accelerate inclusive economic transformation, and to ensure that the promise of democracy is felt in the daily lives of our people, in jobs, in dignity, in opportunity, and in justice. This is not beyond us. The history of the ANC is a history of resilience, of adaptation, and of decisive leadership in moments of uncertainty. What is required is not reinvention, but renewal. Renewal of purpose, renewal of discipline, renewal of social contract between the movement and our people. It is precisely at such moments that leadership most matters, not leadership of slogans, but leadership of substance, not leadership of division, but leadership of unity, not leadership of promises, but leadership of results. Tonight, we are privileged to be joined by a leader who stands at the intersection of history and responsibility. A leader who has walked the long road of our struggle, who has been part of the making of our democratic order, and who now carries the mandate to guide the organization through one of its most critical periods. A leader upon whose shoulders rests not only the responsibility of governance, but also the historic task of renewal. Renewal of this movement, renewal of trust, renewal of the social contract with our people. KwaZulu-Natal stands ready to rebuild, to renew, and to reposition the African National Congress as the true instrument of our people. We stand ready to move beyond internal contestation and focus on the central task of transforming the lives of our people. And we stand ready to support leadership that is anchored in integrity, in unity, and in decisive action. It is therefore my singular honor and privilege to invite to the podium the President of the ANC and the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa. I thank you.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Comrade Jeff Hadebe, the convener of our task team here in KwaZulu-Natal, Comrade Mike Mabuyakulu, the coordinator, and the various members of the task team, Comrade Dixon, Dr. Masemula, the NEC deployee who leads our deployee corps here in KZN, and NEC members who are here present, abefundisi abakhona lapha, nomfundisi who is the provincial chaplain of the ANC, who was praying for our food. Kodwa ikhabeshi angibonanga. Various other leaders who are here present from the alliance partners, business leaders who are here present. Good evening, sanibonani. Ndimadekwana. Absheni. Awu nalahleka ke abantu base KZN. Alahleka impela. It's wonderful to be here and to meet such a galaxy of business men and women who, by their mere presence here, are demonstrating very visibly their support for the African National Congress. We thank you for being here. Your presence here is a clear demonstration that indeed the ANC lives and the ANC leads. So we thank you for being here. This gala dinner is taking place at a time of profound global uncertainty. The type of global uncertainty which, in many ways, as business people, will mean a lot to your businesses. The world economy is shifting between our feet, as many of you will attest to. We are witnessing slower economic growth and tighter financial conditions. We're also realizing or seeing rising geopolitical tensions as well as protectionism that are bound to be affecting your businesses as you trade and as you conduct commerce across various shores in the world. A global contest for industrial advantage is underway. Climate pressures are reshaping energy systems in the world. But alongside these trends, we must also confront a more immediate challenge, a challenge that is clearly impacting a number of your businesses. The conflicts in Eastern Europe and the Middle East are driving energy prices high. Rising food prices are impacting on the livelihoods of ordinary people. Disruptions to shipping and global trade routes, and some of you are in businesses that have to do with logistics and transport. Higher inflation and interest rates are bound to be rising across the world, and in our own country, we will see that impact as well. For our country, this means higher fuel prices that will affect every sector. Beginning the 1st of April, we're going to see a spike in fuel prices. Increased cost of living will increase for our people, even as we are trying to reduce the cost of living. There will be reduced fiscal space for government to be able to meet its mandate to our people. There will be greater competition for global investment. We cannot control these global forces, but we can control our response in one and many ways. This moment demands that we build domestic industrial strength, that we improve logistics, and export competitiveness must also be increased. We must invest in energy security and new industries as a country, and we must deepen regional and continental trade. Because in a world of instability, resilience is not optional, it is essential. This approach applies to how we are dealing as a country with the challenges our country is facing. The ANC, in leading the government of national unity, in addressing a number of challenges, set out to get the GNU to adopt a statement of intent, principally focusing on economic growth, job creation, reducing the cost of living, fighting crime and corruption, strengthening the capacity of the state. Now, these key priorities that are economic growth and job creation are matters that are clearly of key interest to all of you here who are in business, even as you may not be in business. And the center of what government's agenda is to shift South Africa on a much higher growth path. And the key areas of focus are based on unlocking infrastructure investment, particularly in areas such as energy, logistics, water, roads and transport, and a number of other areas, rail included. We're also focusing on supporting industrialization and localization, expanding support for small and medium enterprises, as well as township and rural economies, increasing private sector investment through policy certainty. And the strategic input in this regard is to ensure that we move our country from low growth of -1% or close to 1% to a sustained growth trajectory of between 3, 4, and 6%, where we are able then, in growing our economy, able to absorb more people who work and create greater opportunities for all our people. The second area is to ensure that there is energy security and transition. Ending load shedding remains one of the areas that we have focused on intently. The main objective is to expand generation through getting renewable energy, but also strengthening the current fleet that we have by maintaining it and ensuring that the fleet of our power stations work at an optimal level. And we also want to expand the renewables, as in gas, as well as in other energy sources. Strengthening the transmission infrastructure is another key area. We have to install 14,000 kilometers of transmission lines so that our energy grid becomes stable and able to support the economic growth that we envisage. And enabling the private sector to participate in energy generation is another key area of focus. And that has started to happen, and we want to speed that up. Already we have had more than 100 billion rand invested in various provinces of our country, Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, largely in Western Cape and Mpumalanga. Making sure that as we transit on energy transition, we are able to protect jobs and also able to protect the livelihoods of our people. The third area of focus is to strengthen our logistics infrastructure. South Africa's logistics system through the ports, rail and roads has become a major constraint in our economic growth path. And key areas of priority are reforming and stabilizing Transnet, improving port efficiency, Durban Port, Richards Bay, and Cape Town, opening up rail networks to private operators to enable them to invest, as the debt burden on Transnet is so huge that we need those who have money to invest and open up rail corridors where they can invest, for instance, the coal corridor, the iron ore corridor, so that more and more investments can come in and the tonnage that we then transport can rise. And accelerating infrastructure delivery through public-private partnerships, which we have now reopened to enable the private sector to even come forward with unsolicited proposals so that we can upscale infrastructure in various parts of the country. And the strategic intent through all these initiatives is to reduce the costs of doing business and restore our export competitiveness. The other key objective is to fix local government and service delivery. Municipal dysfunction is one of the biggest threats to the development of our country. The key interventions in this regard are to stabilize failing municipalities with regard to their financial and giving them financial and technical support, but also to professionalize municipal administration and rid our municipalities of corruption that continues to take place in a variety of ways. Improving water, sanitation, and waste services, and strengthening accountability and enhancing consequent management in our municipalities. Our strategic intent in doing all this in the municipal or local government area is to restore basic service delivery as a foundation of dignity and investing in confidence. The fifth area is to tackle crime, corruption, and state capability. Our government places strong emphasis on rebuilding the state. And our key priorities here is to strengthen law enforcement and the prosecutorial capacity. Tackling organized crime and infrastructure sabotage is another area of key focus, and implementing the recommendations of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, and now going to implement the recommendations of the Madlanga Commission. People often say we don't implement recommendations from commissions of inquiry. By far and large, most of the recommendations of the Zondo Commission are being implemented. And of course, people want to see the big people being arrested and being sent to jail and wearing orange overalls. That is mostly what they want to see. And that too is on its way, because the NPA is working on all the issues that it needs to work on. So various recommendations are going to be implemented, as we will implement the Madlanga Commission recommendations as well, as we have already started. And also building a professional, merit-based public service, making sure that those who serve our people do so with integrity, adhering to moral codes and ethical codes, and being there just to serve the people and not their own interests. And this is aimed at ensuring that we build a capable, ethical, and developmental state that can implement policy effectively. The sixth priority for us is to have fiscal stability and social protection. South Africa faces tight fiscal constraints alongside many social needs that our people have. The stabilization of our debt and maintaining fiscal credibility is important, and improving efficiency of public spending and protecting key social programs such as social grants, education, health are the key areas of protecting the lives and the livelihood of our people. Currently, we spend 61% of our budget, 2.2 trillion rand of our budget, goes to social welfare, protecting the livelihoods of our people. We are amongst the very few countries in the world that do so. And we do so in order to tackle poverty, inequality, as well as unemployment in our country. The various interventions that we take in this regard, step by step, are addressing the needs of our people. And of course, we do so also to explore sustainable funding for long-term reforms that need to be embarked upon, particularly the national health insurance, which will make and improve the lives of our people in more ways than one. The seventh one is to ensure that there is inclusive growth and transformation. The government must maintain focus on broad-based inclusion, that what we do must be based on leaving no one behind. And in doing so, we should focus on reducing the cost of living, and we must also make sure that we enhance Black industrialization and enterprise development. This development of the skills of our young people is another area that is important to enhance inclusion so that opportunities are opened up to young people, particularly women in our country. The strategic intent in this regard is to ensure that growth is shared and that it is not concentrated as it has always been in apartheid South Africa. The eighth important area of focus for us is to enhance the trade position of our country. In a fragmented global environment, South Africa must be strategic when it comes to its trade policy. And leveraging on the African Continental Free Trade Area is very important for us, so that as goods leave our ports and as they leave the various rail corridors going to the northern-based countries on our continent, they should be doing so taking advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and making also sure that we maintain a balanced global relationship with countries in the global south and those who we can trade effectively with, even in the West, expanding our export markets and attracting foreign direct investment. On Tuesday, we will be holding our investment conference. Already, billions and billions of rands are already being committed to be invested in our country. And a number of those billions will come here to your province in KZN, and they will be announced on Tuesday. Now, how does this all fit in? All of this fits in, and at its core, the agenda can be summarized as follows: to stabilize our country, to reform and transform, to grow and to include, to stabilize institutions and infrastructure, to reform key sectors of our economy or that drive our economy in energy, logistics, and governance, and to grow the economy through investment, increased investment, as will be announced on Tuesday, and to include more South Africans in opportunities. Of course, everything in life has its own risks. And what are the risks? The biggest risk is not policy design. We've designed policies on many areas of the life of our country, The main risk is lack of execution. We must execute with greater determination and with greater speed. The other risk is lack of coordination across various levels of government. And the other one is speed of implementation and institutional capacity. The bottom line in all this is this approach represents a shift towards pragmatism. It shifts towards more partnership with business and delivery focused on areas where delivery needs to take place. Now, when this approach is implemented effectively, it can mark and is marking a turning point. In fact, many analysts in our country characterize the moment that we are at in our country as a moment where we have turned around the corner. This is evident through a number of lenses. Load shedding is gone. Transnet is increasing its tonnage on rail and our ports. We have opened up opportunities to the private sector in the energy, in the ports and in rail. They are investing billions of rands. We are partnering with the private sector on infrastructure projects. We are tackling crime and corruption. Even as it is being revealed in newspapers, it means that we are taking action to deal with acts of corruption and criminality. That is being done, and sometimes we may lose hope, but I say that as it is revealed, it means that it is not hidden, and that's when we deal with what is happening. As the Madlanga Commission will come out with its report, we will deal with the rot that is in the police. We will ensure that we root out the rot that is in there. The skills revolution is underway. We are now going to focus on ensuring that when our young people get skills, they are immediately led to jobs, because we can no longer continue with training our young people into unemployment. Now, as I see you all here tonight, I see a gathering of those who understand that the future of KwaZulu-Natal, and indeed the future of our country, will not be built by government alone, nor by business alone, but by a partnership that is forged in trust, guided by shared interests, and anchored in a common destiny. Now, the African National Congress was not formed to administer decline. It was formed to transform society. And that is the strategic objective behind the formation of the ANC, as Comrade Jeff Hadebe was saying. The ANC was formed to transform our country from the horrible system that existed under colonialism and apartheid. From the valleys of rural KwaZulu-Natal to the industrial corridors of eThekwini, this province carries both the weight of our history and the promise of our future. We stand on the shoulders of giants, as Comrade Jeff was saying. Leaders who taught us that political freedom without economic inclusion is incomplete. And so tonight we say very clearly, the struggle now is for economic transformation, for growth, for jobs, and for dignity for all. Let us also be honest with one another. KZN has faced profound challenges, infrastructure weaknesses in our ports and rails and logistics, energy instability and municipal dysfunction in parts of the province, and of course, high levels of unemployment, particularly amongst young people. These are not abstract issues. They are binding constraints on investment, on growth, and on hope. I was closing the conference of the ANC in Mpumalanga this afternoon, and I said, the more our municipalities are dysfunctional, the more investors walk away from investing in the economies of our municipalities. And I said, investments do not take place at the union buildings. Investments take place in our towns, in our cities, in our metro. So we need to be clear that this is how investors function. They will only invest in a municipality facility where the municipality works and functions. Where there is squalor, where the roads have potholes, where water is not flowing, where there's sewage in the roads, and where there is instability in the municipalities, the investors will not come and invest, and therefore we will not be able to create jobs. So these are challenges that we must address. But the good news is, these challenges are not permanent. They are problems that can be solved. And KZN is a province of great opportunity. KZN remains one of the most strategically positioned economies on our continent. It is home to the Port of Durban, the busiest port on the entire continent, a gateway to SADC region and global markets, a province that is rich in agriculture, in tourism, in manufacturing and logistics, in case you did not know. A youthful population that is ready to be trained, to be employed, and to be empowered. If we get our governance right, if we align public and private capital, if we rebuild our institutions, KZN can become the growth engine not only of South Africa but of Southern Africa. What we need to do is to ensure that we have a new partnership with businesses here in KZN. And to the business leaders in this room today, as many of you or all of you are, we do not see you as outsiders to the national project or to the project of increasing investment in KZN. We see you as partners in reconstruction and development. But partnership requires commitment as well as honesty from all stakeholders. Firstly, government needs to do certain things. We need to ensure that we give you policy certainty. You must be certain that when we craft policies, those policies are not going to be flip-flop policies. They are going to be policies that you can rely on. We must build a capable and ethical institutions and invest in infrastructure at scale. But we must also ensure safety and stability and adherence to the rule of law. We must, at the same time, make sure that we are committed to creating a climate that is conducive for you to invest. If we do not give you a climate that is conducive to invest, we know that you will not invest. On your side as business, you must invest not only where returns are immediate, but where long-term value can be built. And you must support localization, but more importantly, you must support skills development and transformation, and work with government to unlock bottlenecks, not to stand at a distance. Because ultimately, there is no thriving business in a failing society, and there is no capable state without a growing economy. So why are we here tonight? This evening is about mobilizing resources, not just financial, but strategic. The ANC must remain a strong and capable and ethical organization, able to lead society, to contest ideas, and to implement a developmental agenda. Now, that requires that the ANC must be strengthened, and we strengthen that ANC by fostering organizational renewal, but we also strengthen it by your support, making sure that the ANC is strong from a resource point of view so that it can win elections and continue with the best policies that it has. For I know of no other political party in this country that has the best policies like the African National Congress. I do not know that. And yes, all this can happen through the funding of the ANC. So your contribution tonight is not a donation to a party. It is an investment in the stability and direction and the future of South Africa. So as you strengthen the ANC, you are strengthening our government as well. Let us build a KZN where the ports function at world-class efficiency. We must enable small businesses to grow into industrial champions, young people to move from unemployment to opportunity. And our municipalities must become centers of delivery, not dysfunction. And we must therefore move from complaints to construction, from constraint to capability, and from uncertainty to shared progress. Now, proof of this is in what we are doing here in eThekwini. We are not starting from zero. We are proving that a partnership amongst all stakeholders, business, government at all levels, national, provincial, and local, as well as labor, and as well as civil society, does actually work. And we have seen it working here. eThekwini is the poster province or metro that shows that collaboration amongst all key stakeholders does indeed work. I came here, was it 2 years ago? Comrade Mike Mabuyakulu will remember, and I was asked by business here in eThekwini, who said, Mr. President, we want to see you, and we want to see you alone. We don't want all these other political leaders to be present because we want to talk to you honestly. But I said, well, I'm a politician as well. They said, no, we want to talk to you as president. And they sat me down and took me through all the challenges that they were facing. And they said, Mr. President, we ask for your help. Make an intervention in the eThekwini Metro. And indeed, we set up the presidential eThekwini Working Group, where we brought together all those key stakeholders. And I'm proud to say that it was that working group, which is today led by Mike Mabuyakulu and DG Baleni from my office in Pretoria, who, working together with various people here, key stakeholders, have turned eThekwini around. And eThekwini and Durban is now showing that Durban once again is the tourism mecca of our country. We are already demonstrating a new way of working. Government, business, labor, civil society, and technical experts are aligned. Problems are being solved jointly, are not being passed along. Infrastructure and service delivery is improving, and accountability and urgency is restored. And I am continuously talking about this model. We call it the district development model in various parts of the country. And I'm even saying to other metros, go to eThekwini, go and see how a collaboration of all the key stakeholders really does work. And so, good things once again do come from KZN, as I always say. You are already showing that you can lead. Now, is this work complete? The answer is no. But we have proven something critical. When all role players act together, progress is possible. When we collaborate, we can rebuild. Now we scale up, and we can embark on strategic projects for KZN. We now move from stabilization to growth and to have growth at scale. There are quite a number of concrete investment platforms that we need to keep our eyes on. The Durban Port Efficiency and Logistic Corridor is an important area of focus. The Port of Durban is the gateway to Africa. Yet inefficiencies have cost us growth, investment, and jobs. We are addressing that. We are focusing on expanding container capacity, modernizing operations through strategic partnerships, strengthening the Durban-Gauteng freight corridor, and reducing turnaround times to global standards. And the opportunity that is there is that we create a world-class logistic platform serving the entire region and making this area the true gateway for our country and the main artery of economic activity. Now, we call on business to see opportunities and co-invest in infrastructure, in logistics systems, and corridor development. If Durban works, South Africa works. That is how important Durban is to the economy of our country. Richards Bay Industrial and Energy Hub is another important opportunity, and Richards Bay must become a new industrial frontier. We must position it as the hub for energy-intensive industry, a center for green hydrogen and clean energy, and a base for minerals beneficiation and export manufacturing. The opportunity that is there is to build global competitive industries from our South African resources and do it around the Richards Bay Industrial Hub. And therefore, we call on business to partner in industrial plants, energy generation, and export manufacturing. So let us export value, not just raw materials. And this can be effected through Richards Bay. The third opportunity is the rural agro-processing corridors. There needs to be transformation for rural or to reach rural communities. We must build agro-processing corridors that are focused on sugar, livestock, forestry, and horticulture. And we must build processing facilities that are close to production. And we must have market access through retail and export linkages and the trading hubs that we should build here in KZN. So we must turn rural areas into engines of production here in KZN. So the business community is then asked and called upon to invest in processing, in logistics and agricultural value chains. When rural economies grow, the nation stabilizes. Now, another important area is the KwaZulu-Natal Youth Employment Compact. Every investment must build people. We're calling for workplace training that is linked to every major project. Business participation in large-scale youth intake. We want businesses to bring in young people. And this is where the dual process of training and skills development is important, so that we no longer have training processes that are de-linked to work or from work opportunities. We must link the two and make sure that as we train our young people, by the way, not only young people, because training must be a lifelong process. Even when you are old, you must be able to get training so that you too can transit into some form of job. But that training must be linked to a job opportunity or a job for our people. So that is why we must align our SETAs and incentives to support real employment. No, there should be no infrastructure built without skills, and because there can be no growth without skills, and growth must follow skills. Now, to business, we say this is not a theoretical discussion. These are real opportunities that are bankable, that are scalable, and we invite you as businesses to look at the progress that is being made throughout the country and to look at opportunities that you can get in. Now, these are the areas in which the African National Congress is giving leadership. In the 6th administration, we started and consolidated the process of rebuilding after state capture, of rebuilding even after the floods, and we still need to deal with the flood damage here, of rebuilding after the July unrest. And these are processes that are interlinked of making interventions that will help to turn our country around completely. Yes, you too can be part of this. You can shape the future now or wait to adapt to a future shaped by others. And we say we need to work together to shape the future that we want. Your success is tied to the success not only of this province, but also to our country, meaning that your success in business is tied to the success of the province and the country. Now, in the spirit of what Oliver Tambo reminded us, that a nation that does not take care of its future will not deserve one. So what we must do, we need to take care of that future that we want and make sure that we build that future. How do you do it? You support the engine that is driving this vehicle forward. That engine is the African National Congress. That is the one that is taking the country forward. They may say whatever they like, and some of them claim that, oh, we have done this in the 7th administration. There's no truth in that. The processes have been there through the 6th administration as the African National Congress has been leading the process of ridding our country of state capture, of ensuring that we put in place the foundations for the growth that we are going to see soon. So let us commit our resources, our energy, and our leadership to building the South Africa that we know is possible. The task is, yes, quite big, but so is our resolve. We are resolute, we are committed, we don't give up. As Umfundisi was saying, we keep moving forward. And even as there may be attempts to take us backwards, we move forward all the time, because that is what our forebears taught us. That is what John Langalibalele Dube, the first president of the African National Congress, taught us. That is what Chief Albert Luthuli taught us. That is what Nelson Mandela and Oliver Tambo and Mama Sisulu taught us. Let us take that baton and move forward. Thank you very much for being here.
Another big round of applause for the president. Thank you. Siyabonga. The speech delivered by the President, we were so privileged and fortunate to be given the update about the state of the country, not only to yourselves as investors and business people, but update with the progress and actions that are yet to be taken by his leadership. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite the provincial coordinator, Undiem Mike Mabiakulu, to give us the vote of thanks. And we still have a lineup of South Africa's most loved artists to Mondli Ngobo to entertain us afterwards. But let me allow the coordinator to deliver ama remarks, a vote of thanks. Asamshayele Ihlombe.
Thank you very much, program directors. Well, first and foremost, our guest of honor, Your Excellency, the President of the African National Congress and the President of the Republic of South Africa, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, the members of the National Executive Committee, led by Dr. Dixon Masemola, the provincial leadership led by Comrade Pungane, the provincial convener of the PTT, and all members of the PTT present, our alliance structures, all of them as have been introduced, the esteemed leaders of business and captain of industries, esteemed Inkosi who are present in our midst tonight, comrades and friends, honored guests. On behalf of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal, it is both a privilege and a profound honor to rise before you and to convey our deepest appreciation for your presence at this important gathering this evening. We are deeply humbled by the presence of our President as the guest of honor at this important fundraising gala dinner of our movement in our province. Comrade President, your steady leadership continues to anchor our movement at a moment that demands clarity, courage, and renewal. Comrades and friends, this evening is more than a gala, but a practical expression of a living partnership. a social compact between the African National Congress and the broad strata of our society. Your presence here is itself an affirmation that the future of South Africa can only be built through cooperation, honest dialogue, and a shared and unyielding resolve to advance the interest of our people. We declare with conviction that the African National Congress, the ANC, remains the most reliable guarantor of stability, of democratic continuity, and of the inclusive economic growth in our beloved province. It is the ANC that carries the historic mission of our people. It is the ANC that holds the experience, the depth, and the resilience to navigate the turbulence of the present and unlock the extraordinary possibilities of the future. But this mission cannot be carried out by our ANC alone. It calls for a sustained and purposeful partnership. It calls for business that invests with conscience and with vision, for traditional leadership that roots communities in dignity and stability, and for civil society that harnesses the enduring power of our people. Together, we can rally behind a shared vision of renewal, of growth, and of genuine transformation. So as we turn towards the 2026 local government elections, we find ourselves at a moment of inflection. And for some, these elections, they claim mark a death knell of the ANC. But for us, the forthcoming elections are not merely a contest for office. They are a referendum on the soul of our democratic project. And they mark an opportunity to fortify and strengthen local government, and to accelerate meaningful service delivery, and to defend and advance the hard-won freedoms for which so many sacrifice so much. And for this reason, the success of the ANC is not a narrow partisan objective. It is a national imperative. It is a summons to every South African who values stability, who values development, who values a country that truly works for all its people. And as we approach the end of our remarks, we must express our profound gratitude to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for prioritizing this evening's engagement. We thank you for coming critically. We thank you for opening up your pockets and your purses, particularly in these lean economic times, to contribute to the efforts of our movement, to renew itself and to continue to execute its historic mission of creating a truly united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. And through your attendance and immeasurable contribution, you have given us a clear instruction that we must rebuild this ANC and ensure that it is an old machine, but it is also ready to contest the forthcoming election. We need to build a South Africa of our dreams, and we stand ready to do precisely that. We therefore make an unequivocal call this evening. Let us all as South Africans work with the ANC, invest in its vision, and stand firmly behind its program of renewal. And let us move forward together. We thank you for your presence and for your partnership and for your enduring belief in our shared future. Comrade President, we think it is befitting tonight that after sharing such a very enlightening speech and giving us the guiding and the leadership, we would like to hand over a token of appreciation as the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. It is therefore my honor, Comrade President, to invite you to come to receive this very likely token of appreciation, which is very symbolic but yet powerful for what it represents. May I request the President to come here so that we can hand over this token of appreciation to the President. Comrade President, I carry with me here on my left hand a shield that is to defend our people. And we want to give to you this shield to defend this nation and our movement. I carry with me, Comrade President, a knobkerrie that represents that those who stand on the way of the ANC, you will kindly just show them the knobkerrie, they should then move aside. Yet I carry with me, Comrade President, the spear to protect the nation and to advance what the ANC was established to do from the beginning. Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Comrade Mike. Now with this, because I've been given a few even by the King, I can have my own amabuto. But it will be amabuto of the African National Congress. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Lo mhlaba uyathemba, bonise libona.